Hello everybody, today I want to talk about the Metroid series, and specifically two games in the series, the two latest games. Metroid Returns for the 3DS, and Metroid Dread for the Switch. I guess I'll start off with talking about my experience with the Metroid series. I started with Super Metroid, which was an amazing game, came out when I was a kid. I used to play it with my cousins and my uncle. It's a great game on the Super Nintendo. It's just... it just kind of gives you a little bit of a backstory, like what happened in the first two games, which I wouldn't play until much later. And then it kind of throws you alone into this world, and you have to like explore, find power-ups to keep exploring while you fight little flora and fauna of this alien planet. It's very cool. There's big bosses. It's great. Right? I've been a fan of the Metroid series ever since that game. Playing all of them. I'm going to play them all on this channel eventually. One by one, and talk about what I like about them, what I don't like, blah, blah, blah. So, recently, they announced Metroid Dread, or... Actually, now it's a little late. About a year ago, they announced Metroid Dread. And I wanted to check it out, but I had not finished Metroid Returns on the 3DS. I bought the game, I played it, and I quit it. They had introduced a new mechanic that was like a parry mechanic where you can parry enemies. And I didn't like it. I felt like the game relied too heavy on it. In the beginning anyway, like when you first play the game, your powers are very, or your basic weapon is very underpowered. So if you parry an enemy and then attack it, it does extra damage to the enemy, which basically makes that the go-to move when dealing with enemies. And I didn't really like that. I felt like it didn't fit Metroid. And I actually quit the game because I wasn't really having any fun using that mechanic, right? But then when they announced Metroid Dread, I was like, all right, let me force my way through this game and see if it's any good, because Metroid Dread is being made by the same company who made Metroid Returns. And I played it, and I enjoyed it much more. Knowing that the parry was going to be there, and knowing how, like, big a part of the game it was going to be, I was, like, prepared for that. And, I kind of pushed my way through it. So the game, like I said, is on the 3DS. It's not on any console, so there's no way to play it like on the big screen, which is annoying, but I did push through it, and as the game goes on, the parry gets better. You get a bit more powerful, so your other attack options become a bit more viable, so you don't have to rely on the parry constantly, which makes it better. I still don't think it fits in Metroid. I'll talk about that maybe a little bit later on, but it does get a lot better. They introduce 360-degree aiming, which honestly I think is a little bit unnecessary. Like, there's a button you hold down and Samus stops in her tracks, and you can aim in any direction using the analog stick. I think they do this because of the limited buttons on the 3DS, but it's not... I don't know. I think it's not really necessary. In the old Metroid games, there was a button where you'd aim at a diagonal up, and then you could push down to aim at a diagonal down, and then you could just jump or move yourself to a different location if you wanted to hit a specific spot. In this game, Metroid Returns on the 3DS, like, you just kind of stand in one spot while you're trying to aim and hit things. It's not horrible. It's just, it feels like it makes you vulnerable when you're trying to aim at something specific, you know? And I didn't really like that. I'd rather have the diagonal aim and just be able to run around. But it's fine. So, in Metroid Returns, it's just like the original Game Boy game, where you're trying to hunt down Metroids on, I think it's Planet 2DOS or some shit like that. Like, it's got like a weird name. It's like the Metroid homeworld. So you're trying to hunt down Metroids, so that's what you're doing. In Metroid Returns, it's the same. So you keep having to kill Metroids, and they don't look. They're like more evolved than the signature Metroid. You know, the jellyfish looking thing. They look a little different. They look like little floating crabs, and then they evolve into like different kinds of creatures as you fight more and more of them. But it's still like you fight like 4 or 5 of each of this type of Metroid, and it's like a little mini boss each one, and that gets repetitive. You know, like fighting the same kind of mini boss over and over again gets repetitive real quick. Some of them, like as you're fighting them, they run away to a different room, and you have to like hunt them down through, you know, various Metroid rooms to try and find them. So yeah, that's definitely a low point in the game, is fighting the Metroids over and over again. They give you some added abilities in this game. For those of you who don't know, in Metroid you basically get new abilities which open up new areas to explore, which gets you new abilities, which opens up new areas to explore. Like that's what a Metroidvania or a search action game is. So they added some abilities that are like not in the other Metroid games. They have a specific name. It's not Phazon. It's like something else. Like Chozon or something. It's like Chozo power abilities. I forget what they're called. But they're fun. They feel like extra things added in. They're not like super amazing, but they're better than nothing. One is like a scan ability, which helps you find hidden items, which is pretty cool. One powers up your beam. One gives you like a shield that drains your energy instead of your health. So they're not bad. They also add some of the items you get are different than you would get in the normal Metroid games. You know, like the charge beam, the ice beam, blah blah blah. All that stuff is in there. You know, the screw attack, all that stuff is in there, but there's also some extra things that are not like super interesting, but it's slightly different from what you would normally get, which is pretty cool. The design on Samus's suit as she upgrades it changes a little bit in this game, which is also pretty cool. They added some, there's a few new bosses, and they're pretty fun. There's a digger boss, it's like a digging machine that you have to fight, and that thing's freaking obtuse as hell. I could not figure out what the game wanted me to do with that boss until I finally did, and I was like, oh my god. It's like 4 deaths later, it's like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. So it's like not really clear. So that was pretty rough. But other than that, like the game is pretty fun. There's a few like cutscenes that add to like the story of the game. Samus doesn't really speak or anything like that. It's just her exploring this planet, you know, all by her lonesome, and eventually finding or eradicating all the Metroids, and then finding the baby Metroid, spoiler alert, and escaping the planet with the baby Metroid. It's a fun game. It's a fun game. It's only on 3DS, which is a shame. They should remake it for Switch, because you don't really need the little second screen. It's unnecessary. But they should get it so more people can play it, because it is a decent game. And it's good to play, like, if you're getting yourself ready to try Metroid Dread. So now, I would say let's move on to Metroid Dread. So this is the newest Metroid game. It came out, I think like the middle of last year, right? Or a little bit towards the end. I got it when it came out, and I played it, and it's a damn good Metroid game. It's a lot of fun. Much better than Metroid Returns or Samus Returns. Much better than the 3DS game. The presentation in the game is like really good. It opens up with the same kind of thing where it briefly gives you like a synopsis of all the previous games and tells you what's going on. It introduces like a rival character or an enemy character right away, and he kicks your butt, and it gives you that series like staple, like where Samus has all her powers and something happens and she loses them all. He basically kicks her butt. He doesn't kill her though. There's a reason for that you got to find out as you go through the game. And so like losing your powers is not so silly in this game. It's actually like, oh, okay, that makes sense. The presentation of the game is really good. It looks great. Samus animates great. You can see that it is a budget game. You can see that Nintendo wasn't like, here's all the money in the world, go make the best Metroid game ever. You can definitely see the budget. But despite that, the game is very pretty. I'll talk more about the environments, but there's a lot of cool stuff like going on. The animations are all like really great. The characters are detailed. The bosses are detailed. They move really nicely. It's fun. It's a buggy game. There's some bugs in the game because I feel like it was maybe a little under budget and maybe a little rushed. But despite all that, it's still really awesome. It feels excellent. Moving Samus around is like smooth as butter. She's got a lot of movement options in this game. They're all really fun to do, and it's really smooth doing it. Like doing the wall jump is easier than ever. You can do like a little slide that gets you around and gets you to avoid enemies, and that's really cool. There's abilities you unlock that are really, really cool. Very cool. Very cool. Movement in the game feels great. So there is an element in this game that is the reason it's called Dread, and it's the EMMI robots that chase you down and hunt you down. They're basically invincible, so you have to run from them. It's a fun mechanic. I think what bugs me is the robots themselves aren't scary looking. They look very like... They look like the robot from there's a movie called like Red Planet or something like that, where there's this robot that hunts down these people. They look exactly like that fucking robot. I wish I could find it. But I don't know, they're just not threatening looking. In the game they're threatening because of their abilities, but they aren't like seeing them doesn't make you scared. It's just like you have to get away from them. So that part, like, it's fun, but I don't know. I kind of wish it was like some kind of scary looking enemy. I feel like the enemy robots don't quite land the mark that they're hitting for. So the parry system is back. It works a lot better in this game. You can parry like while you're running. You do like a dashing parry. You can slide parry. You can do a bunch of parries. I still feel like it doesn't fit the Metroid series. But it does work a lot better. It is a lot cooler in this game. It's not hyper relied upon, but using it gives you like good rewards, like extra damage on bosses or a faster way to kill enemies. What I think it should be, you could keep all the frame data and everything like that, but I think it should be a dodge instead of a parry. Like, I think Samus should dodge. She could either dodge in place or dodge like fucking Bayonetta, where she goes through the enemy and then counterattack. I think that makes more sense. Seeing as Samus doesn't use like a melee weapon, she uses a gun, so I feel like a dodge would fit more, rather than her using her gun to bludgeon something out of the way. You know what I mean? Like, I think their heart's in the right place. I just think they chose the wrong like maneuver to do. I think a dodge move would have been way better. And you could also do like these cool parry animations or dodge animations or whatever, like with a dodge, and still have this cool kind of reaction to it. Like, you could keep all the frame data the same. It's just a dodge seems to make more sense to me, like avoiding damage and then counterattacking, rather than knocking the enemy's attack out of the way with your gun. You know what I mean? So the last like Metroid game on consoles that wasn't a Prime game was Metroid Other M, and that game was not so great. I didn't play it personally, but I saw a lot of the game, and a lot of the presentation of Samus in that game is not something I would enjoy. She's very like weirdly vulnerable. Like, she'll take a hit and her armor will disappear. It's very weird. In Other M, she's very like, she's talking about the baby constantly, the baby Metroid, and she just says the words the baby over and over again. She's super like pretty looking, and the camera is like constantly like looking at her butt and stuff like that. And there's none of that in Metroid Dread, which is really an improvement, I would say. I think when you die in Metroid Dread, you see the Zero suit. But I think in the rest of the game, I don't even think you see it. Maybe some of the end game screens that you get for beating the game under a certain amount of time. Maybe then you see it, but during the game, like, the Zero suit is absent, which I enjoy because I hate the Zero suit. So Samus has got like more of an attitude in this game. Like, she's kind of cocky, which I enjoy a bit more. Like, she's less afraid. There are moments where she's afraid, but like, she's more like of a scrappy kind of like, a little bit more toned down than Dante from Devil May Cry, but she's got like some smart ass kind of maneuvers, and she like sort of trolling the enemies kind of moves that she does, which give her a little bit like kind of a cocky personality, which I enjoy. Her voice acting in this game is very minimal, but like when she does talk, it's like, oh, like, yeah, she sounds cool, and she sounds like how I would think she would sound. Like, it's not like too, like, it's spot on. Like, it's kind of perfect. She's isolated for the most part, which is kind of fun for a Metroid game. There are other characters. You know, Virgil is there. This rival character who's a bird, like Virgil, is in the game, but he's not there constantly, and he doesn't overstay his welcome. I feel like he's used pretty well. There's some stuff with him that I didn't think was great. Maybe I'll talk about that at the end. Maybe I'll have like a spoiler thing. But otherwise, the story is very enjoyable in this game. It's kind of simple, but it's fun, and I think that makes for a good Metroid. I think simple but fun makes for a good Metroid game. The boss fights are a lot of fun. They kind of mix it up in this game. Like, instead of just there being huge monster bosses who are in the game, there's also like humanoid, quote unquote, enemies. Like, there's like fights where it's you versus something that's about your size with your mobility, which is also kind of cool, and that's different from Metroid. You know, I don't think there are any of those in other Metroid games. There's the SAX in Metroid Fusion, but really you just run from that, and that's it. Like, that's all I can think of. So there's like these small humanoid enemies that are kind of using abilities similar to yours that you have to fight and win against, and that's really cool. There are some new items, a bit more than in Metroid Samus Returns for 3DS, and the new items are pretty cool. I kind of wish there were more. Like, there as many new items as there are in this game. that do new, completely different things. They're all pretty interesting for the most part, and then there's a lot of things that are renamed that are just old. Like your beam is just like the 3 phaser beam. Like you get something called a wide beam, which is just the phaser, and that's it. It gets upgraded. Like your beam doesn't become anything any more interesting than that. There's some missile upgrades. One of them's pretty cool, but it kind of lacks in power. Like for what it is, it's like a lock-on missile that fires a bunch of missiles after you lock on. It looks really cool. Doesn't feel as impactful as I would hope it would be. Although the power bombs in this game, they feel like power bombs. Like they feel really powerful, and they feel like they're really messing up the environment and stuff like that. And they're kind of useful during certain bosses. So I like that a lot. I wish there were more new items. I hope if they do another one that they give it the correct budget and we really get to see some weird new awesome Metroid abilities. So there's... You get a scan ability in this game as well. Which is great, but you get it kind of late in the game. You also get your Morph Ball really late, which I like. Like they kind of... Morph Ball is usually like the first thing you get. And in this game, it's like, no. You explore without it. And we'll show you all these things where you need the Morph Ball. And then finally when you get it, you'll be like, oh, finally. So that's pretty cool. I like how they did that. Like they kind of remix how you get items too. So that's pretty cool. The beam weapons that you get in this game don't really look so cool. I think, bringing Metroid back to the consoles, like in Metroid Prime, like the beam weapons that she used in those games were pretty awesome. Metroid Prime Echoes I didn't really enjoy, but Metroid Prime Corruption had some cool beam weapons in it. I just think like if you bring Samus back to console, even if it's a 2D Metroid, like make her main weapon, make the upgrades look really cool. I don't want to see like Game Boy Advance versions of the weapons on a Switch. I want something flashy and cool. I want it to feel powerful. So I think they kind of dropped the ball with that. They're useful. It's the same kind of beam upgrades. There's nothing like special about them, which is a little shame. But and you might say like these are nitpicks, and they kind of are. Like the game is very good, but I think like in these exploration games where you get these new items, like how much the item affects your gameplay is a big deal, and how the item feels to use, or how having the item from then on feels, is a big part of it. So you should feel cool if you get a new laser beam, right? It shouldn't just be like the old laser beam but slightly stronger and has like a quality to it that is different. You should shoot enemies and be like, yeah, and feel cool. And then when an enemy finally shows up that you don't feel that way about, you should be excited to get the new upgrade where you feel cool again, that kind of thing. Back to like the story elements, Adam from Metroid Fusion is back, and they did him really well, I think. His voice isn't annoying. They went with like a robot voice. He's kind of instructing you to where to go. You don't have to use him, really. You can skip his advice and just kind of explore, or you can interact with him to get more points on the story. And he's not offensive. He just kind of sometimes gives you information you've already gleaned, just for people who have trouble like keeping up with that kind of stuff. It can be a little annoying, I guess, but it's not bad. Yeah, so he's like your partner character, and he's not like Navi. He doesn't overstay his welcome. Actually, I didn't think Navi was bad. He's not like Fi from Skyward Sword. He's pretty well done. I think that's basically everything I have to talk about. The boss designs are very cool. Some of the bosses have unique ways to defeat them using items you've obtained, where you can defeat the boss very fast, and that's really cool. There's intentional like skipping of certain items or getting items sooner than you should, like sooner than the intended path. And I like that a lot. Like, they expect you, because this is a Metroid game, to like skip certain parts of the game and try to get ahead and try to get your time down for finishing the game. And I really like that, because there's a reward for beating the game under a certain amount of time. One thing that bugs me for both Metroid Returns, or Metroid Samus Returns, and what do you call Metroid Dread, is the best endings. They're just looking for speed. They're not looking for you to get all the items in the run as well. And that, like, I'm cool with that. Like, I like, getting the fastest time, but I also think that the challenge is getting all the items and finishing the game quickly, and being able to do that is awesome in the earlier games. So I kind of wish that there was one reward for if you did everything real quick, like under 3 hours, you get some kind of super awesome reward in this game. But they just count for time, and then you can get the items afterwards at your leisure and then get that reward. Like, they're kind of separate. And I wish there was one where it was together. You get everything, and then you beat the game, and then you get something. And for the most part, the ending rewards are just like pieces of art. There's not something that you get to use in game. Like, it would be nice if there was like a new game plus or something, some kind of reward in game that you could play around with. Maybe like a fusion suit or a Metroid Prime suit or something like that. Something that where you beat the game, you earn a cool reward, you get like a cool cosmetic or something like that. Like, I'd appreciate something to that degree. Okay, so that's it for the non-spoilery part. Now I'm going to talk about some spoilers for this game. Specifically the ending. Just because I have a something of a criticism about the ending of the game that I just want to get off my chest. I'll definitely end up playing this game on my channel eventually. I'll probably go through the whole series, but I just want to talk about the ending a little bit. So if you don't want to hear it, go away. Okay, so you get to the end and you face down Virgil. I think it's Ravenbeak is his official name, and it's a great boss fight. But during the boss fight, he kind of reveals that he calls Samus his daughter because his DNA is in Samus. So there's two tribes of Chozo, which are bird people who raise Samus, and there's like a scholar tribe and a warrior tribe. So they took DNA from both tribes, put it in Samus to make her like this ultimate warrior amongst humans or whatever. So they used specifically this guy's DNA to infuse her, to give her strength. Does she know that? Like, it's hard to tell in the game if she actually knows him. Like if she's wasn't aware of that, or if she actually knew him beforehand. It's not clear. It's not clear if they have like a previous, because as the player you don't know him. This is the first time you're ever seeing him, and Samus doesn't indicate really whether she knows him or not. There's a line where she says, "I'll settle this once and for all," and it's like, does she mean this that has started at the beginning of the game, or has this sort of tension been there for years? Has she known this guy for years, and does she hate him or something like that? Like, he calls her daughter. Did she actually see him as like a father figure at one point, or is he just saying that because he like has his DNA in her? I wish that was more clear. Also, after the final battle, there's like a new ability of Samus's is unlocked. After the final, or actually in a point a little bit before the final battle, Samus gets a new ability. So in Metroid Fusion, she gets infused. These are all spoilers, so fucking don't, you know, don't listen to this. But in Metroid Fusion, she gets infused with Metroid DNA in order to save her life. And in this game, that Metroid DNA allows her to absorb the energy of other things, right? It's not just living creatures. She can absorb the energy from robots and stuff like that. And that's really cool. Like when that ability, which is unlocked like in the game through story beats, when you unlock it, it's like, oh, that's really cool, right? And then she'll like have like, after you beat a certain boss or two, she'll do something cool where she absorbs their energy and drains them. And that's awesome. But what's not awesome is that ability is never translated to what you can do in game. Like I can't do a parry and then drain an enemy of its energy, and I wish that I could. Maybe they just didn't have time to implement it, or whatever. But like I really wish that the energy drain was something you could use as a weapon in game. I think that would be awesome. I really think that's a misstep or a missed opportunity to not have her Metroid abilities be a part of the game. I'm sure if they make a sequel, then they will be, and that's great. I just wish that they were a part of this game, because that would have made that moment so much more cool, you know? Like if you started just grabbing enemies by the face and just draining them, that would be awesome. Okay, so now you beat Ravenbeak, right? And she uses that ability to drain him, and she drains all the power in his ship and everything, and she becomes hyper powered. And then you fight a big enemy with your hyper powers, and then you run away, because you have to run. The planet is always exploding at the end of a Metroid game. In this game, it's not really clear why the planet is exploding, but it's exploding. You have to run away and you have to escape. After you destroy this big enemy, I think the pacing of that is backwards. I think you should get that awesome ability. You should try to run away, and then blocking your ship is the big scary enemy that you have to destroy with your new power. I think that would have been better than destroying the enemy and then running. Like they could have just reversed it. I think it would have been a better ending. Because that would be like the cherry on top of the situation. And that's it. It's like the difference between like an 8.5 and a 10. Like these little these issues I have. Like it's like you are almost there. You know, it's a buggy game, that brings it down. Some of the environments, they're just kind of just environments. They don't look like they really are a part of a planet. You know, they don't look like they make sense going into each other. You know, like if you go to a lava area and then the next area is like a forest area, you would think at the edges of the lava area there would be like little hints of forest or something like that. There's nothing like that in the game. It's just like the backgrounds of the area changes, and even kind of the floor that you're running on is like kind of the same. Feels like the same thing, just with a different background. So that could be done a little bit better, I think. That brings it down a little bit. And then just the pacing of the last series of things, and just being clear about like Samus's relationship to this new enemy would be awesome. But all that said, the game's great. It's really, you know, like I love the Metroid series. It's been a part of me since my childhood, and it's great to have it come back. Better late than never, and to be such a good game. You know, Metroid Dread is really great. Blows Samus Returns on the 3DS out of the water. It competes with Super Metroid, I think, as like the best 2D Metroid game. Just gameplay wise and like the feel of the game, it wins like hands down. Just the way the game feels, hands down. The way the game, Samus's design wins pretty wholeheartedly. It's just like missing these little few things and has these little hiccups that kind of bring it down. which I think leaves Super Metroid as still my favorite of the 2D Metroids. Metroid Fusion is too much people telling you what to do and pointing you in the direction and saying, you go here, you do this now. It's too much of that. Metroid Zero Mission it's got that, you know, Zero Suit butt shot, you know, Samus is vulnerable section in the game, which didn't make any sense to me. And then Metroid Other M is a fucking mess and should be thrown out of a window rather than played. And Metroid 1 is awful. And then the GBA game, or the Game Boy game, is a Game Boy game, also not great. So it's really Super Metroid in this game in the top spot, or contending for the top spot, and I think Super Metroid just slightly, like, just beats this game out a little bit. There's more, I think, agency, or like the ending in Super Metroid, I think, is a bit better. You know, the events are a little bit more like, they hit you harder in Super Metroid than in this game. But this game is like almost there. Like a lot of cool stuff happens at the end. It's almost there, you know? Maybe if it was extended, maybe after you beat that final boss, if some new threat was introduced and you had to use the ability you get from the last boss to deal with this new threat or something like that, then it would be cool. But like, it's just slightly off. It's awesome, but just slightly off. But yeah, Metroid Dread is a great game to play. It's a great game of 2021. A lot of fun, and everybody who enjoys these games should check it out. And people who don't enjoy these games might want to check it out and see if they do enjoy these games. And I guess that's that. Thanks for listening to me talk about the Metroid games, or the newest ones, and I hope to see you again in the future talking about some more stuff that's cool. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.